Hey everybody, this is Sam and welcome back to Level 1 Pre-Production. Today we're going to be focusing on Lesson 7 and that is going to be minor triads. So let's take a look. After this lesson we will be able to answer what are triads, which we already know. More importantly, what is a minor triad and what is the difference between a major triad and a minor triad. So just some review from the last lesson. Triads are chords with 3 notes and chords are multiple notes played at the same time. The big question to answer is going to be, what are the notes for a minor triad? And the answer is the notes of the intervals. So when we take that into account, we already really know what we're doing. We just have to know the formula for that minor triad. So let's take a look. Okay, so that minor triad structure is going to be a root, just like a major triad. We also have a perfect fifth, just like a major triad, but we have a minor third instead of a major third. And if we look on our list here of all of the interval names, there's only 12 of them. The difference between a major third and a minor third is only 1 half step. Okay, so a major third has 4 half steps and a minor third has 3 half steps. So if we jump into logic here and take a look at the MIDI, we'll notice that a C minor triad is right here. So this is something to keep in mind. We have a C, we have a D sharp. So technically this note is wrong, even though it sounds the same, and that's that enharmonic equivalence we were talking about. This is why it's important. The DAW doesn't necessarily know what key or what notes we're playing or what are visually correct. The DAW only cares about how it sounds, okay? Even if we change the key in the DAW to C minor, those notes don't really change too much, okay? That being said, let's jump back in. Okay, so let's see some of these examples. So we have this C minor triad. Let's hear how this sounds. So we can visually see that it's a C, E flat, and G. And some other examples are going to be D minor, F minor, and E minor. Let's take a look at what those actually will look like. So if we break in here, if I get rid of this keyboard, I'm going to just scroll down a little bit. We've already got the tracks laid out. But the fun part is that we can do the same exact thing, right? So we can push that there. We can just drag the MIDI over and then we can actually highlight it. And then we're trying to make this a D minor triad. So all we have to do is move everything up since everything's highlighted and that structure is still there of that root, minor third, perfect fifth. There we go. This is what a D minor triad sounds like. Very, very cool. Still very minor sounding. We can do the same exact thing for all of these. Okay. So this would be an F minor triad. This, that. There we go. Find an F. There we go. All right. And we want to point out again that we have an F, G sharp, and a C. This should technically be an A flat. Okay. Now the reason why it should still be an A flat and not a G sharp is because it needs to be a third. Okay. A G is actually a second. Okay. So let's think about this. And the easiest way to think about it is to actually just count on your fingers. It sounds ridiculous, but it's true. If I start at F, the next note in the alphabet would be G, and the next note after that is A. So on A, the third needs to be an A. That's all we need to do it. So F, G, A, B, C. So we know that F, A, C. What type of A? A natural or A flat? In this case, it would be an A flat. Okay, so if we jump back in and we want to make this F minor triad to an E minor triad, we would do the same exact thing. We just highlight everything, okay, and then we'd find that E. So I'm just going to move everything down a half step. There we go. And now we have E, G, and B. And a really easy way to tell, if I open up the keyboard here, there we go. We've got an E right there, and this G is going to be 3 half steps away. So starting on the E right here, it'd be 1, 2, and then 3. Okay. And then if we start on the E to get to that B, it'd be, here's the E. So it'd be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. This is a B. So that would be the root note, the minor third, which is going to be 3 half steps, and then the root note to a perfect fifth, which is 7 half steps. Let's hear how that sounds. So I just want to point out we don't need to know every minor chord. We just need to know that structure. So as opposed to trying to learn everything and apply it to one thing, we're learning one thing that it can apply to everything. It's a much easier way to remember this stuff, and it takes some of the burden off. Additionally, you can just edit the MIDI so you don't necessarily have to be very good at piano to do this at first. It's going to make you want to play more because it is more fun, but just getting going, you won't have that barrier from the beginning. Okay. So the question really to answer now is, what is the difference between a major triad and a minor triad? And I already sort of mentioned this, but let's take a look at something more specific. So if we look at C major versus C minor, and again, we've got C, E, and G for C major, and then we have C, E flat, and G for C minor. Okay, so we've got a root, a third, and a fifth for both of these, but the root and the major third, or 4 half steps, is going to be the thing that changes, and the root to the minor third is going to be the thing that changes. All great and dandy, but let's see what that actually sounds like. So I'm going to go back to this C minor triad here. This is one of the better ways to do this so we can hear them one after another, so sonically we can hear a difference. So I'm just going to take that minor third for the major chord now, and then pop it up here. So right now we have C minor, and then C major. So let's hear what that sounds like. Okay. And just for fun, what I'm going to do is I'm going to duplicate that so we can hear it back and forth just for a couple more iterations, just to really hear the sound in our head. Okay, so we've got, again, C minor, C major, C minor, and C major. So C minor, here comes C major. Great, and that's easy to hear, but I'm gonna make it a little bit more obvious because it does blend in a little bit. I'm gonna make the E a little bit louder, or another way of thinking about that, I'm just gonna open up the velocity a little bit. There we go. Okay, so that is easy to hear, but what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to increase the velocity of the thirds because that's the only note that's changing. And visually we can see what's going on, but we also need to be able to know what's going on sonically. Okay, and that's it. That will work for every minor triad and every major triad. So the real comparison here is just to remember that there's only one note changing. That's it. So if we know a major triad, we can literally just think, well, the third changes and now we know a minor triad. So we don't even have to remember all of these things. Just base everything off of what you know and shift it a little bit. It's a lot easier to remember that. Okay. So some questions to think on. How do triads work within a given key signature? And what are diatonic chords? I hope this all made sense. Looking forward to the next one. See you soon.